Hello and welcome back to Introduction to Physics. Today we're going to be doing a lab on Newton's second law. So if you would go to Canvas and then Modules and then Labs and then go to the Unit 1 lab, and when you open up that document, down at the bottom you're going to click on the tab that says 1.5 Newton's second law. So that's the lab that we're going to be doing. Okay, first you're going to do the pre-lab questions. So what's the purpose of the lab? You'll find that in the lab itself. And then safety instructions. So this one uses the computer, so there's not going to be any safety instructions for this lab. Question number 3 is to define what acceleration is. And then how do you know if something is accelerating? Answer that question. Then define what mass is. Define what a force is. Question 7, define what the sign convention is for forces. And then finally, question number 8, what is Newton's second law of motion? So what's the formula for it? Okay, so let's go on down to the procedure. And you need to go to the PhET simulation online, and this one is going to be Forces and Motion Lab. That would be the one that you want to go to. Okay, for part 1, we are going to investigate what is a force and what does a force do. So you're going to click on the box that says net force once you get into that simulation, and you're going to select a blue child to pull on the rope. So you're going to grab the child, pull it up and attach it to the rope, press the go button, and then find out what direction does the cart go in. Describe the motion of the cart. Okay, you're going to click on the button that says reset. So reset the simulation. You're going to click on the speed and values boxes, and then verify the answer that you just got when you described the motion of the cart. Okay, now reset the simulation again, and this time you're going to select a middle-sized person instead of a child. And predict before you run the simulation what do you think the motion of the cart is going to be. Okay, then you're going to use Newton's second law to answer the following question. A force causes an object to accelerate. If 7 times the force is used on the same object, what would be its new acceleration? So use your formula for Newton's second law in order to answer that question. Okay, now we're going to go to part 2 of the lab, which is on adding forces together. So this time you're going to select a blue child and a red one. Now before you run the simulation, I always want you to, in your head, to predict what do you think is going to happen before you run the simulation. So go ahead and then run the simulation, and what happens? Okay, now reset the simulation, but this time you're going to have a blue adult and a red child. Predict what's going to happen, and then run the simulation, and then write down what happened. Okay, now reset it, select 2 blue adults and 1 red child, then run the simulation, and what happens? So based on your observations, answer the following question. The blank force acting on an object is what causes it to move. So there must be a blank force acting on an object in order to cause it to move. Okay, now we're going to go down to part 3 of the lab, and we want to explore what is the effect of mass on the acceleration of an object. So this time you're going to click on the box that says motion. So we're going to get out of the current simulation. We're still in the PhET simulation on Newton's second law, but we're going to now go to the one that says motion. Okay, you're going to click on the values, masses, and speed boxes. So you need to have all of those boxes available to you. You're going to move the slider down at the bottom that says applied force, and you're going to move it until it says 100 newtons. So that is going to be the force that is going to be applied, and then run the simulation, and then what happens? Okay, then apply the force to the box. Once the box is moving, stop applying the force. So when you move the applied force slider, then the thing started to move. Okay, how did it move? What word would we use to describe the motion? Okay, then on the second one, we are going to move the slider. It's going to start to move, but this time let the slider go so that you stop applying the force. What happens to the speed of that object? So there's a particular word I'm looking for here. So which of Newton's three laws? So is it the first law of motion, the second law of motion, or the third law of motion that is being illustrated by the motion when you turn off the force acting on the object? So next, you're going to replace the crate with the refrigerator. What property are you changing in the system when you replace the crate with the refrigerator? You're making it more what? Okay, run the simulation. What's different this time? So how would you describe the motion this time when you increased the mass? Okay, then answer this question. A force caused an object to accelerate. If a smaller mass is used, then what would happen to the acceleration? So if you applied the same force to a smaller object, what would the new acceleration be? Would it be less, more, or would it be the same? Okay, then the last thing it says to do is to set the mass to 200 kilograms and the applied force to 300 newtons. Calculate what should be the acceleration using Newton's second law of motion. Okay, so now we're ready for part 4, and so I'm going to stop the video here, and when we come back we're going to proceed to part 4 of the lab.